Every time you open your mouth, someone judges you. And the problem is, if you open your mouth and you're speaking English, there's lots to judge you about. English is complicated. Every time you think you know a rule, you find there's an exception. Like the one that everybody knows, I before E except after C. It's a good rule. It really helps because you won't get believe and receive wrong. But what about leisure and weird? Neither of those follow the I before E rule. Neither does neither. As for after C, what about science or society? The list goes on and on. But that's not to say that learning rules is a wasted effort. There are some rules which, if you break them, will say to people, you're uneducated. And that means that you could get turned down for a job or a contract just because you make a glaring error in the use of your language. Many mistakes are so commonplace and the rules so obscure that anyone could make them and no one will think badly of you if you make them. For example, less versus fewer. If you can count it, it's fewer. If you can't, it's less. Drink less beer by drinking fewer pints of beer. Who's going to notice or care? Or quotation marks. There are rules about which side of the full stops these marks should go, but again, even people with degrees in English get those wrong. Or when people say disinterested when they mean uninterested. It's so common, I don't think anybody cares anymore. So today, I just want to look at 7 mistakes you really shouldn't make. There are a lot of really annoying words that are part of the same family, and to make life complicated, they sound similar. Affect and effect. One's a verb or doing word, one's a noun or object. So what I say affects you, but what I say has an effect on you. Another one like that is lie and lay. When you're speaking in the present tense, don't say, I lay down. You have to lay something. So, you lay an egg, you lay a table, you lay a carpet, you can even lay yourself down. But you lie down, you lie on the bed. The complication here is that the past tense of lie is, you guessed it, lay. So it's fine. If you're talking about yesterday, yes, you did lay on the bed. But today, now, you lie on the bed. Then there's homophones. They're a big problem. These are words that sound the same, but have different meanings. Perfect example. There, there, there. They're eating their dinner over there. Or your, meaning it belongs to you, and your, short for you are. You're eating your dinner. That brings us to apostrophes. I think you knew you couldn't escape this one. An apostrophe can be used when you're contracting words, so it is becomes its. Can be used to indicate possession. Can, but not always. Paul's website, yes. But its with an apostrophe is not the possessive form of it. That's its. But the one solid rule is that you must never use an apostrophe to make a plural. No potatoes, no talks, no apostrophes. I could do a whole video on how to make plurals, but one thing's for sure, it won't be with an apostrophe. Except, I told you there's always something, except for letters. So, mind your P's and Q's. Apart from that, if you forget everything else about apostrophes, just remember, plurals do not need apostrophes. On to the dangling modifier clause. What is it? Why does it matter? Let me give you an example. Sleeping in my orchard, a serpent stung me. Who's sleeping? Is it the serpent? Well, the serpent's closest to that clause or phrase, sleeping in my orchard, but the speaker means he was the one who was sleeping. At the very least, this could be confusing. At the worst, the listener or reader could entirely misunderstand the sentence. Now, if you get this wrong, you're in good company, because that was a quote from William Shakespeare's Hamlet. Even so, let's try and get it right. A modifier is a phrase intended to modify what follows. Unaccustomed as I am to public speaking, that's the modifier, I'm going to say a few words. But if what you want to modify doesn't follow immediately, it's left dangling, hence dangling modifier clause. So, while watching the television, the cat sat on my lap. The modifier explaining that I was watching television is left dangling, waiting for me to appear in the sentence. Meanwhile, the cat gets in first, as they so often do. And it sounds like the cat was watching television. Having taken great care of my makeup, my husband was very complimentary to me. Did your husband do your makeup? Well, maybe he did. I don't know. And that's the trouble. We can usually work out what you mean, but don't leave yourself open to misinterpretation, or worse, mockery. Could've and would've are in remarkably common usage for something that is meaningless and entirely wrong. People say could've and would've when they mean could have and would have. May sound like of, but it just isn't. Is it I or is it me? I or me? Well, as a general rule, it's I if you're the subject, it's me if you're the object. Of course, you can make an exception when somebody asks who's there and you correctly say it is I, but more likely you're going to say it's me, and that's okay. That's an exception. It's still an important rule. Listen to the difference in these two sentences. I bought cinema tickets for my wife and me. My wife and I went to the pictures. I don't believe you're a worse person because you say we was instead of we were, but it's a simple fact of life that poor grammar will make many people respect and even trust you less. And that really counts if you're trying to sell them something or persuade them that you know what you're talking about. So, those are my 7 basic grammatical errors. The difference between affect, a verb, and effect, a noun. The difference between lie and lay. You have to lay something. Homophones. They sound the same, but don't get them wrong when you write them down. They're a place, they're belonging to them, they're short for they are. And you're and your. You're belonging to you, and you're short for you are. Apostrophes. Use an apostrophe when you're squashing 2 words together. Use an apostrophe S for nearly all possession words. Don't use an apostrophe for plurals. The dangling modifier clause. Make sure that what you're describing follows straight away in your sentence. Could've and would've are wrong. I am me. I is the subject, me is the object. I thank you for listening to me. I'm Paul Severn Lewis, and this talk was brought to you by Hampshire Workspace, suppliers of serviced offices in Winchester.